Hello, and I hope you're all well during this time. I want to welcome you to this podcast, COVID-19, So What Now for Small Businesses. It'll be about 45 minutes long, and there will be some activities and actions that we will focus on throughout the podcast. And before we start, I maybe want to contextualize what I've experienced in the past couple of weeks, because I've spoken to a lot of businesses throughout Ireland. And there's common themes that are coming through that I want to share with you, which I think will help. And the reason why I think it will help is because we are all in this together. We are getting new information every day. People have, at this point, they're getting over the shock. We obviously are focused very heavily on supporting the NHS where we can. And it's important to recognise that things have changed dramatically for the world. And for you and your business, that does mean that things will change for the here and now. But it also means that we need to plan for the future. And we need to plan how we can support you during this, and also what actions you can take for the immediate, short term, and also the longer term future. So that's what this podcast will cover. And it's important to understand that the actions and activities that I'm suggesting are to help you. And it's to allow you to have, or enable you to have, a bit of control back. And that element of control will, I hope, make you feel better during these unprecedented times. And in the fact that we're on uncharted waters, there's a lot of ambiguity. But if you can make plans, take some actions, and really think about where you are for the here and now, how can you keep your business afloat? And how can you manage to make some plans for the future? That's the best that you can do at the moment. And that will be really important for you to then go away and do those actions and try to manage the best that you can. So, as I say, some of the themes that have been coming out in the last couple of weeks have been, how do I furlough my staff? Should I furlough them? Can I? Are there some staff that I can keep on board? Cash flow. How am I going to manage to keep, I suppose, my business afloat for the next 2 to 3 months? And cash flow is absolutely essential. And I will give you some support and assistance around how to manage that and what to do. The other thing is, can people moratorium on loans and pause them? So people have been contacting their banks and speaking to, those representatives within the bank to just find out, can I pause this for a bit? And also, people have been looking at, now that we don't have rates to pay until the end of June, and if people have rent, can they go back to if it's a private renter, can they go back to that and renegotiate those terms? And I suppose also one of the things coming out is, if things can be put on pause with regards to expenditure. You had a bank of clients and customers and stakeholders, suppliers and so forth. People are making contact with them in a completely different way. We're all working remotely. But making contact with them is essential. I have been astounded and pleasantly surprised by the amount of entrepreneurship and innovation that has been happening across Ireland. Just fantastic to see people, where they are able, have reached out to their customers, even by phone or by email. Some people have redirected a lot of their services to online. Some people have absolutely, completely embraced social media, and they weren't doing it before, but they are doing it now. And they've got plans in action in order to be able to develop that for their companies. That would be something that they may use for the longer term future. But at least they're doing something about it now. When I work with the companies that are doing that, they feel as if they're taking the control back, and it's taken some of the uncertainty away, i.e. they are controlling what they can control, and what they can't control, they're parking that for the moment, because really they can't do anything about it, so they're focusing on what they can control. So this workshop is going to give you a guide, and it is only a guide. It's not specific for your individual business, but it will allow you in your business to take actions away and to focus on what those specific actions might be. your business. So I hope that you get something out of it. As I say, it'll take about 45 minutes. I'm going to share my screen with you shortly, and that will allow us to walk through some of the points that I want to make and some of the actions and activities. And it's really key to understand that everybody is in this together. And where we can support each other, it's really important to do that. So I really hope that you get something from this podcast. And I just hope that it's helpful. So let me share my screen. And we can start to walk through this. Okay. So what now for small businesses? That's what this is about, 45 minutes. And what's really important is to focus on the aspects of the actions and activities that I'm asking you to consider. So you're very welcome. And let's look at the workshop aims in specific. So it'll equip you to take stock of where your business is now and on the subsequent journey to creating a short-term containment plan. That's important. What do we need to do for the immediate now? And maybe identify some longer-term countermeasures. So we'll provide tools and guidance on cash flow, which is absolutely essential for the next 0 to 6 months. Looking at what those available supports are, and I will give you links to those websites. It's important that you look at those websites every day if you want an update, particularly on the government supports for COVID-19 and the impact of small businesses. Maybe looking at the clarity for employees and what you can advise them, and keeping engaged with your customers and your suppliers. That is absolutely essential at this present moment in time. It's important to know that, and to tell them that you haven't gone away, that you're still here. Give them and share some of your plans with them so that they'll know what to expect. And during times like this, I think it is important with people, because if your business just, drops off and you're not planning to make contact with your suppliers and your customers, they will just imagine that you've just gone away. But that may not be the case. You might be thinking of re-engaging this in the next 0 to 3 months as you see how things unfold. But I think right now it's important to just make contact with them and let them know that you're still around and what your plans are. That will give them a sense that you're still going to be around to do business with. So a lot of people are still working out what now. The other thing that I have seen in the past couple of weeks is companies have actually moved beyond that. They have assessed their cash flow. They have spoken to their clients, customers, stakeholders, suppliers. They have, I suppose, re-strategized on what they can do for an immediate plan now. There are some questions that are still unanswered. When are we going to do this? What will the future be? Will everything reopen at the same time? Will that be a staggered approach? The answer is we don't know that. So we are still working out for some of those answers, what now? And I guess it's important to know that although we don't have all the answers, where we do have some answers and some response already from government support, and particularly from podcasts like this, you can take some action. And the important thing is to take the action and take some control back. So let's talk about living in a VUCA world. VUCA meaning volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So I think that characterizes the current environment, and there are personal and business leadership that is required to navigate that successfully. So there's a YouTube clip at the bottom of the page. So click on that after the podcast and have a look at that. It'll certainly help you to contextualize what living in a VUCA world means. But what's really important to understand is when there's volatility, people start to think and overthink. People start to look at things with, complexity, and clarity seems to be, something that isn't there. But yet clarity is what we need at this particular moment in time with the things that we can control. When you're in a period of ambiguity, you tend to fill in, a lot of the ambiguity with, overthinking and what ifs. And those what ifs can create stories. And those stories can be, not really focused on something that is true and real. So think about the fact that, yes, it is volatile at the moment, and it is uncertain, and it is complex. But when you're in that all, it's into a position of ambiguity, it's essential that you step back. It's essential that you can focus on what you can control and make decisions and actions around that and take that control back. It's also important to not fill the gaps of the ambiguity with what ifs and, stories that may not be founded in truths, because that's, as humans, that's what we do whenever we're in periods of ambiguity. So think about the clarification that you need and the actions that you can take right now of what you're in control in. I think it is important to mention well-being because of the situation and people working remotely. It's important to connect, obviously. The other thing is that I had found in the first couple of weeks of this that there was an overconnect. My WhatsApp, my Skype, text messages, etc. It literally just went berserk. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to manage all of these responses. So I don't. What I do is I connect with the people that I absolutely have to. And I pick up every now and again with those people that have sent me texts that I know they're not dependent on me, but I also know that they want to reach out. So, you have to manage that. There has to be a balance of what is right and what is not right. And I do think you need to connect first and foremost with the immediate people if you're looking after anybody, or if you've got elderly parents, or if there's people that are depending on you, just connect with those first and foremost. Keep connected with your work colleagues, even if you're all working remotely, or even if you're on furlough. They are still your colleagues. And for the fact of the time that you could be sitting at one space at 8 a.m. in the morning till maybe, 5 or 6 in the evening, get up and be active and take your daily walk, and just make sure that, you can move, because that will actually lift the mood and it will change the scenery. And the other thing is to take notice. So I know this sounds cliched, but it is the small things during this time that is keeping us going. So the fact that we're based remotely at home has allowed me personally to be able to spend more time with my children, which is great. We're able to bake, we're able to have dinner together, we're able to watch movies together. So maybe some of those things that we took for granted before really do lift the mood at this particular moment in time. And I think it's important to take notice of the bonding that you might be getting. And I know we don't want to be in this position, but it's where we are. We have to make the best of it while we're going through it. So the other thing is to keep learning. I am a very, very strong advocate of learning, be that informal education. I do think that it reaffirms your self-belief and your self-esteem, and it helps you to make different plans, better plans going forward for the future. So read, become more self-aware, speak to people, learn through podcasts, or, decide that you might want to take up some sort of formal training or learning, whatever that might be. Spend your time wisely and really focus on learning during this time. And actually, we're probably learning every day with the new updates and the new information that's coming through. But it is important to keep learning. And the last thing is to give of your time. So we can do that online, we can do that through our words, but when we are present, just be present and make sure that our time is of quality. So let's look at the 3 C's. And what might they be? So concern. So I'm going to ask you to define fully what concern might be. And I'm also going to ask you to look at finding the root cause or causes of those concerns and to identify what that might be. The reason why I want you to identify what they are is because I want you to, I suppose, pinpoint what you can do about that and take an action if you can. And therefore, that will bring us to creating a short-term containment plan and also looking at longer-term countermeasures. So my first action for you is to look at the cause and concerns. So create a long list of concerns, and I'm sure there are many that you want to put down, but I'm going to ask you to reduce it to maybe your top 5 priority. And for each of those concerns, identify the cause of them. And if you identify the cause of them, if you can share them with your fellow workers, with your fellow leaders, with your fellow management, they're likely to have the same concerns. If you can't share them with those people at the moment, at least share them with someone if you can, at home, if that's possible. And the information is not too private, but really those list of concerns could be something similar to what I have seen in the past couple of weeks, which is, will I be able to keep my business afloat? Okay, well, let's look to the loans that you have. Can you take a moratorium on those? Let's look to see if, staff, if they can't continue to do what they're doing, are being made temporarily redundant. Should they really be put on furlough? Can I take a business interruption loan? Do I need that? Can I avail of the small business grant for £10,000 that the government is offering at the moment? Is that something that I can apply for? And when we come to later on in this podcast, I will give you, I suppose, some of those links. As I've said, link into those every day and get the up-to-dates. That's important to do. So write the list of concerns down and you list where they're coming from. For those that you can't control, park them. For those that you can control, focus on them and focus on creating an action. Share that action with someone. Use that person as a soundbite. Use them as the second guess in order to be able to ascertain whether you're taking the right action on it. So before I go on to mention cash flow, and we do need to put this into the right context, and I am using that cliche, cash is king. You have a business and you had a business to run. You still do, I hope. And I hope that this podcast will help you to make decisions to reinstate that for the here and now and also to plan for the future. Your cash flow is essential to knowing what should go out with regards to expenditure, should be coming in. And if there's nothing coming in, then you do need to look to the government support and to be able to look to some of those grants and loans that are available. But if you don't understand what and I would call it a 100-day plan, what your 100-day plan is now, and also subsequent to that, the next 100-day plan, you won't be able to make rational and decisions with clarity. So it's important to understand the cash flow is king at the moment. So do you need a cash flow plan for the next 3 months? Yes. And I am going to give you an example of one of those. Can your accountant help? I hope so. And if you haven't already been in contact with your accountant, and I know a lot of businesses have, a lot of businesses are working through this right now, but contact your accountant. What is your expenditure for the next 3 months? What were you expecting to come in? Will that still come in? Now that you can park rates for small businesses till the end of June. If you're in private rented accommodation within your business, can you renegotiate that? So look at the expenditure, look at the income, and I will go through that in greater detail, but just reach out to your accountant and say, I need to understand what is my expenditure and what is my income over the next 3 months. So therefore, I need to know what the bottom line is. So if you have the skills in-house, use those. If not, seek someone out to be able to work with you to help you to do that. But you must take action. It's essential that you take action on your cash flow. So let's look at the fundamentals of this. And again, you can come back to this podcast and you can review this particular page and just decide exactly on the incomings, what can I maintain? Is there customer payments that are due into me? Can I maintain those coming in? Is there any grant that I can receive so I can bring money in as soon as I can? And therefore you'll introduce some sort of support for the business. Look at the salary support that the government are offering for furloughed workers, which is really another term for temporarily redundant. And just look at some of the things that you might be able to increase. I have been really surprised by the amount of innovation and entrepreneurship that I have seen over the past couple of weeks. It's been absolutely fantastic. And based on that, you know, people are starting to service people online where they can. If anything can be done remotely, do it. So it's important to know that we are in a different world now, but people are also looking to the future. And they're thinking that, well, if I do this now, I'll always have that element of my business. I'll always have the online digital part in the background that I can switch on or switch off. Or in fact, I'm going to make it a bigger part of my business. So the amount of innovation, as I say, and entrepreneurship that I have seen has been really fantastic. If there is anything that you can do online, I would urge you to do that. When you're looking at your outgoings, there's a full list of there, which would be typical ones. But on each of those, you may be able to stop or reduce in some way. There are going to be essential ones that you'll have to maintain, but there may be some that you can decrease. There could be things that you could defer, in which case then if you can defer them or stop them, do so. And again, look to what people can offer you through the government support in order to be able to take some of the sting out of what is the expenditure of your business. So this is a cash flow forecast, as I say. I'd like you to come back to that and look at it in more detail, but it's one that you can populate the information to and send it to your accountant to be able to finish off. But I want you to think about looking at your money owing and your money owed in a simplistic way. Okay? Put it into that cash flow forecast. And that will take you, for example, if you were to start it at the end from end of March, it'll take you up until the 15th of June. I would suggest that you create another one from that, which will also take you from the middle of June right on to September. So on the cash flow, I want you to think about what actions do you need to take now with respect to your cash flow, and who needs to help you with that, and what's the time scale for each of these. If some of these, for example, are going to be spread out onto the next 100-day plan, then that's fine. You can just concentrate on the here and now. And one of the things that I have found is that those companies that are able to focus on the here and now for a particular moment in time, have got clear plans on that, they're actually able and can move forward with a little bit of ease onto the second 100-day plan. But make a list of the actions that you need to take now. Speak to your suppliers, your creditors, your debtors, speak to your accountant, and make sure that you have a good handle of your incomings and your outgoings. Okay, so really important. Go to the website www.nibusinessinfo.co.uk/campaign/coronavirus-updates-support your business. That is updated every day with new news that is coming from the government. And then when those portals for the applications are opened, that's where you will seek the link. Another really insightful one is from KPMG. And it's quite a long web, but it's in front of you there, but I will read it out anyway. So it's KPMG/IE//COVID-19/2020/03/government-support-Northern-Ireland-business. That was really long, but you can see it as well. Both of those are really good websites. The NI Business Info was one that I look at myself on a daily basis. You might have others yourself that you go to, but I would urge you to use the NI Business Info one. Okay, another action. So if we can look at sources of information, and these sources of information are really around, you know, again, the business information that I have just given out to you, but there are other primary sources of information for you now. Some of those could come from your suppliers, some of those could come directly from your customers, and some of them should be coming from your accountant. So I want you to think about what are going to be your 3 primary sources of information. I would suggest that getting government updates would be your businessinfo.gov.uk, your accountant, and your stakeholders. And that's primarily, from an order of priority, the rest of the leaders and managers within the business. If that is only you, then you're making those decisions, but you also want to share those with someone, be it your accountant or someone that understands your business and can help you navigate these waters. And the other thing is, what do you need to find, or how can you find further information now? You can go searching online for a lot of this information. So on a daily basis, I'm following Twitter, LinkedIn, the nibusinessinfo.gov.uk, and those are giving me, obviously following, the Sky or BBC or whatever live news streams. But I tend to do that at certain times throughout the day, so I'm not boring myself. So I do it first thing in the morning to make sure that I'm up to date with what's going on, which means that I can go about my daily business. And then the second thing is to be able to then go to it towards the mid of the day and then towards the end of the day to see if there's been any movements on that. Now, Twitter and LinkedIn are going to give me a lot of the current information. And I tend to not follow a lot of the non-necessity information during this time. And my absolute go-to is the nibusinessinfo.gov.uk. But you think about what your sources of information are, and if you're still feeling lost, reach out to people that you think might know. Sometimes we don't want to read anymore. Sometimes we just want to hear it, and sometimes we want to see it visually. So visually, auditory, and then, combining that information, what does that mean for you? This is really, really important. And I mentioned this at the start. Keeping engaged is essential for, I suppose, your customers and your staff and all of your stakeholders, the rest of your colleagues that exist within your organization. So who do you keep engaged? Who are they? So there's an example. So imagine that you're the person in the middle of that diagram. You're managing the stakeholder management. So the first thing that I would urge you to do is to speak to your customers. Tell them that you're still operating, you are finding your feet, you're working your way through what you need to work through, you're getting daily information, but here's what you as a company have decided to do for the here and now, and that you will touch base with them next week. And as you update and as you make further plans, this is what you plan to do. The other thing is talk to your suppliers. If there's any possible of extension on any of your contracts, do so. There's probably a lot of people that are coming back to them and they ask the same question, and they may have an approach on that, but at least ask the question. Your business partners are essential. They need to be on the same page as you. You need to be engaging with them on a daily basis to say, look, we're in this together. We need to steady the ship. These are the decisions we're taking on the cash flow, income and expenditure. These are decisions that we're taking on how we relate to our customers and our clients. And this is the decisions that we're taking on our suppliers, and generate and delegate a lot of those actions out. So that allows them to be able to come back to you with those actions, so they still feel needed, they still feel wanted. And the most important thing during this is to trust them. Very often when we go into a situation which is crisis, we micromanage, because that is a general psychological response to something of this nature. You micromanage, you control, because you need to feel that control, but you got to trust. You got to trust your colleagues, and you got to trust your colleagues to know that they're in it with you. So any conversations that you're having with them, if you haven't had those already, then contextualize that for them. So we're learning as we go along, and it can strengthen people. Again, I know we don't want to be in this position, but it can actually strengthen a team to know that now that we're faced with this, which has been so unprecedented, and never experienced before, that we actually can strengthen the team. And whatever way we come out of this at the end of it, we know that we have something to move to. So that therefore means that your top management and any business areas that you have, any project teams, and any other stakeholders that you have, because you might have shareholders, directors, and so forth, you need to reach out to them. Just keep the lines of engagement open. But you're in the middle, you're right at the core of it, and you're the person that will navigate and lead throughout this. So when you're analysing your stakeholders, the purpose is to target and prioritise the communication. Whom should be speaking to? What is it you want to tell them? Keep the message consistent and clear. Don't make it too long. Keep it within a reasonable length. And just think about the degree of interest to you and you having them. So you're determining their significance to you, and therefore that will help you to ascertain the amount of time you should be making contact with them and the mode and methodology of which you're contacting them. So you might immediately want to send an email to say, look, I'm going to be on social media for a bit, or I've set up something within the website, you can contact me through that, or here's my, Skype, I'd like to speak to you, or use Zoom, which is what we're using now. So you just need to assess, first of all, whom you want to target and prioritize them. And then when you're determining their significance to you and also their interest in you, you can work out who you need to speak to first and which mode of contact you want to be able to use. So let's look at the types of communication. So the objectives of the communication are to just keep the awareness there and your commitment high. Really important to do that. You also want to make sure that you're delivering accurate, clear, and consistent messages. You want to manage those expectations. And the successful communications are based on 4 core elements. Clarity, targeted at the right audience. There's going to be different messages for different people, different language, length, different mode of communication. As for feedback on the effectiveness of this, if you've sent out a pre-recorded message or you've sent out an email, pick up the phone to them and say, did that make sense? Do you understand what we're trying to do? Do you understand where we're coming from? And that's an effective delivery mechanism. So if it's an email, if it's a text, if it's something on the website that's more formal, if it's a quick message to them by a phone call, whatever that is, ask them at the end, do you understand why we did this? And do you get the sense of what the communication is about? But ultimately, you're keeping the lines of engagement open. Your commitment is still there. Your awareness around what is happening is prevalent. Because of this, you're reaching out to them and saying, well, how are you doing? This is how it's impacting us. But what we would like to work with you is X, Y, and Z, be that now or for the future. And make sure that that's reiterated, that you don't just disappear. Manage their expectations. If there's some things that you can do that you were supposed to do, then they will understand. Manage those expectations. So you have to think about the most effective means that you are engaging with your stakeholders. As I've said, people have really engaged social media, and I think it's important during these remote working times that people do that. There are essential workers out there that are continuing to work. But for us that are running businesses and managing businesses, it's really essential to make sure that your means of communication is effective. So, as I said, social media, which could be anything from Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and also for some businesses, Pinterest works. But email, let's look to the basics. Email and telephone call. Skype, and Zoom, and there are many others that are like that, but at least through, Skype and Zoom, screens can be shared, people can see you, they can see that you're well, they can see that you're committed to them. And just think about how you are engaging with them and make sure it's as personable as possible. Because as I say, it is something that we are all in together. So I want you to make a list of the people that you need to engage with. Assess and identify the message that you want to give them to. Give that to someone else to see whether someone else needs to read over it and that it's actually hitting the mark. Think about the methods that you're going to use. Think about a follow-up method to inform it and reaffirm it. And just think about the regularity of how you're going to engage with them. Okay. So this is about bringing it all together in a 100-day plan. Right, that's a little bit small at the moment, but you can make this screen bigger. And this is a Excel spreadsheet, which is a typical example. What I am going to do is I'm going to show you this on an Excel so that you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so there you go. So basically this is a project plan, 100-day plans, and you have here plan. You also have a risk log, so you can identify what your risks might be. You can then decide what an issue is. So, think about the difference between a risk and an issue. A risk is something that could happen, and you need to identify that it could happen so that you're prepared for that. An issue is something that has happened and you need to tend to, and you need to deal with that. And therefore, from the issues, you need to have decisions and you need to have the core information. So that's about what's the description of the issue and the decision that you need to make. Who agreed it? What's the date? And what's the output of that going to be? But this all starts with a plan. So you can start this plan as if it's from, say, 1st of April or 1st of May, whatever that might be. List out all the key milestones of what it is you want to do and have a date assigned to that. Something like that shared around your team gives them a sense that the leader is in control. The business owner is taking control through these uncharted territories, and that's making me feel really good. You could ask them for their input. You could ask them for their support, which therefore you get onto a Zoom call or a Skype call and you talk about what are our key milestones, what is it that we're looking to do, and just really outline all your different steps. When people see things in chronological order and when they see them with dates attached to them, they know what they're working to, so therefore they can put those dates in their diaries and they can work to those, so they still feel useful, feel trusted, and they still feel part of the business. So a plan like that is essential in order to keep people engaged. So that's bringing it all together in the 100-day plan. And the other thing is a list of actions to support your plan. Now, when people see action plans, they sometimes think that you're micromanaging. So you set the agenda, you look at the action plan and you send it through and you ask for feedback and comments. You don't go through it with everybody, to the point where it is micromanaging. Trust that the people will see the actions through. Touch base with them at your regular intervals and just make sure that they are coming back, but not without you phoning them, all the time, because you didn't do that before, so therefore why would you do it now? So again, I'll maybe show you this action plan in a larger document so you really see it, but this would be an example. Really simple. What are you going to do now? So think of the 3 things that you can do to improve your performance. So what, how, when, and what support do you need? And that's essential to be able to follow through. But a good plan implemented today is better than a perfect plan implemented tomorrow. I would urge you to get plans done and to look to a first 100-day plan that also has a follow-on cash flow management for 100 days, and to then look beyond that. I can't emphasize enough that with regards to the businesses that I have spoken to, those that are planning beyond that with the things that they can control feel as if they are in control. And that return to a control of my business absolutely installs leadership behaviors, and it installs hope. And it's as simple as that. People have worked years and really long and hard to make sure that they have a successful business. And based on that, then it gives you hope that, you can reinstate, you can reopen. You might have to do things differently, but at least you've got a plan in order to be able to do that. So that's your 100-day plan. And this is finally, before I summarize, this is a checklist for you to revert and go back to once this podcast is over. The first thing is take immediate steps to ensure your own well-being. You're the leader, you're at the helm, and it's essential that you stay well and stay focused and lead the team through the difficulties. Identify your concerns and your causes. And for those that you can control, take a plan, take an action. For those that you can't, park them for the moment. You can't do anything with them. Things will move, things will change. There will become times where you will be able to do something about them. But if it's not right now, then it's not right now. And go to the things that you can control and really focus on those and share those. Make sure that you are, advising what your actions are, what your concerns are, and what you think your actions might be, and check those with people. Really essential cash flow management actions. You need to know what's coming in. You need to know what's going out. You need to know what you can stop and what you can decrease. And you need to know if there's anything that you can do to be able to service people in a different way. And potentially send out some invoices during this time. But it's really essential to know, do you have the opportunity and do you need to take out a loan? Which of those loans are you good for? Is it a business interruption loan? Is it the small 10,000K business loan that you can get? Are there loans that you have existing that you need to look at, renegotiate, pause? Is there salaries that you don't need to pay because the people are temporarily redundant? Then you move them on to furlough. And can I renegotiate something with my suppliers? Are those suppliers taking a blanket approach with all of the people that they provide that product or that service to? And therefore, I can maybe extend that out just to ease the burden a little bit. But really essential to look at if there's anything there in the background that can help to be able to add a little bit of positive cash flow into the business. Then look at those actions and speak to your accountant about that. You're identifying your accurate, relevant, and current information sources. So sometimes there's too many out there. I've given you an explanation as to what I do throughout the day, and that's because I need to be updated with what's happening for businesses, and also I suppose I'm personally interested in as well, but I do need to find what the government support is offering and how that can be updated on a daily basis. So as soon as the portals are open for applications for furlough and so on, get on the ball and basically put those applications in. But just watch out for the different types of information that come through. There's an awful lot of stories going around on social media that are untrue. Make sure what you're reading is coming from a valid and a reputable source. As I said, I've had to turn off a lot of my texts and WhatsApps and kind of like a lot of the YouTube things that would come through. Some of them are unfounded. So I want to focus on what is the only information that I know is right at this particular moment in time, and that's coming from a valid source. Look at your engagement actions. So we've gone through the types of engagement that you might do, right from, social media to email to phone and to changing your website. And you might be engaging. Make a list of priority people. Make a list of how you're going to communicate and what you're going to communicate, and check that. If you put that into a table, it's very easy to send that out to someone to say, does this make sense? And do you agree with it? So I would urge you to share that. And then create and implement your business's 100-day plan. Take the control back. really essential. Take the control back for what you can. There's an awful lot there that you can't control at the moment. We're all in that boat. But what you can control, you absolutely must, because that will help you to be able to feel better about yourself and about your business. And also, you're the leader. So it doesn't matter at what level you're at the business. If you are responsible for something, then you are a leader in your own right, and you need to take control, and you have responsibility and accountability for that particular aspect of the business. And the last thing is to say that, first of all, thank you for listening. I wish you well during this time. I hope that this has been of some support, at least from the perspective of taking action. That's really important, to give you clarity that all the themes that we covered in this podcast is the themes that I have seen in the past couple of weeks from the businesses, and we will move on in the next couple of months to potentially different themes. But people are taking the control back of what they can control. What they can't, they can't. That's difficult, but we have to work with the reality. If you can take some of these actions and take some of that control back, that will be essential for you, not only for yourself personally, but also as a business. But I would urge you to go back over this podcast and look at some of those actions, and to share those with your colleagues, and to share them with your business partners. Thank you. I wish you well, and good luck.